Let's make an arrow symbol that we can stretch without distorting its shape. We'll start by getting the rectangle tool and drawing a rectangle. This will be the shaft or body of the arrow. To give the arrow a little character, we'll make the feather end rounded. There is a rounded rectangle tool, but it's more fun to do it interactively. In the Appearance panel, open the Effects list, check the Stylize group, and select Round Corners. Increment the radius until the two radii meet, making a semicircle at both ends. The right-hand end will get covered up by the arrowhead. When we use Pathfinder to unite the arrow parts, the head and the shaft, the rounded effect gets removed, so first we have to make it permanent. In the Objects menu, with the object selected, click Expand Appearance. This turns the arrow shaft into an object with actual rounded ends, instead of a rectangle with a special effect applied to it. You can now see the new control points at the beginning of each curve. To make the arrowhead, we'll get the Polygon tool. Click and drag to start the polygon, and then, with the mouse button still down, use the up and down arrows on the keyboard to set the number of sides to 3. Then use the Shift key, with the mouse button still down, to align the polygon to the horizontal baseline. Now release the mouse button, switch to the Select tool by pressing V, and rotate the triangle 90 degrees. Again, use the Shift key to snap the rotation to the baseline. We'll use the green Smart Guides to make sure the triangle ends up centered on the arrow shaft. Finally, nudge the triangle a little further onto the shaft, just to make sure the control points for the curve are inside the triangle. That way they'll disappear when we use the Pathfinder's Unite command. Now we have a finished arrow shape. We'll give it an arbitrary fill color, say orange. And we'll increase the stroke width a few points so it's easier to see. Now let's turn it into a symbol. To do this, open the Symbols panel and just drag the arrow into the panel. Give the symbol an appropriate name, and we'll leave the other settings as they are for the time being. Now the arrow on the artboard is an instance of the new symbol. Arrows are always different lengths, so let's see what happens when we scale the symbol. When we scale the arrow to be very short, the whole instance squishes proportionately, like we expect objects to do in Illustrator. But in the case of an arrow, that's not exactly what we want. Long and short arrows should have the same size arrowheads and the same roundness at the opposite end. And it's really only the shaft that should be getting longer and shorter. So let's delete these distorted arrows and fix the symbol so it scales correctly. I'll move the Symbols panel so you can see its menu. First, open the Symbol Options panel. We could have done this when we first created the symbol, but I wanted you to see the distortion problem first. We'll click Enable Guides for 9-slice scaling, and you'll see why it's called that in a second. To edit a symbol, double-click on an instance. The original unscaled symbol art appears in isolation mode. You can see the 4 guidelines that divide the symbol into 9 slices. The central slice is free to stretch, but the corner slices don't stretch at all. It's easier to understand if you just try it. We'll end symbol editing mode by double-clicking on a blank part of the artboard. Now Alt or Option drag to make another symbol instance. Drag to shorten it, and now the head and round end stay in proportion while just the shaft gets squished. We'll make another symbol instance, drag it to stretch it out full width, and again, just the shaft stretches while the two ends stay the same. This is exactly what we wanted. But what would happen if we stretched the symbol vertically? When we scale vertically, we find there are suddenly unexpected angles on the arrowhead. There weren't any control points there, so what's causing the distortion? To find out, we'll double-click the instance to go back into Symbol Edit mode. The strange angles correspond to the two horizontal scaling guides, which were letting the middle part of the head stretch while keeping the top and bottom corners frozen. In 9-slice scaling, the corners are always kept from stretching in either direction. Move the guides so the whole arrowhead is between them. Now double-click again to end editing, and now the head scales proportionally as we would expect. Let's make the arrow skinnier than the original and try out a couple of different lengths. Again, the head remains the same, the curved endpoint stays the same, and only the central shaft section stretches. Now you have a reusable arrow symbol that can be lengthened or shortened anytime you need to without distorting.
Hello everyone and welcome to another tutorial at whiteler.com. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create a realistic looking eye similar to the one that you see right in front of you. So what we're going to do is open up a new document in Adobe Illustrator and get your picture opened up. And once you have the picture opened, so we're going to click on the picture and dim images to 50%. So now we'll create a new layer. Make sure that the stroke is filled to black. Click on the ellipse tool, hold down the shift key, and drag. And don't worry if the size of the eye is too big, we can always change that later. Okay, now we're going to pick some colors for the eye. Now you can pick whatever colors you want, but I'm going to go over here, swatches, and click on this little icon here. Click on gradient and select sky. Here you have a wide range of options, and you can choose any one that you want. You can choose brights, color harmonies, and sky. So I'm going to choose this color today for today's tutorial. Okay, now making sure that the circle is selected, we are going to click on the gradient. And then we're going to change the type from linear to radial. Now the next step is to draw another circle, and we're going to select the fill and change the gradient to black. Okay, now holding down the shift key, we're going to draw a circle. Now we're going to use a tool called Crystallize, alright? And what the Crystallize tool does is it adds random points to a shape. You just have to make sure that the stroke and or the fill is filled in with a color. Okay, now we're going to select on the last circle that we used the crystallize tool on. So you're going to go to transparency and change from normal to soft light. Okay, now that we've created the first part of the eye, we're going to work on the eyelid. So for this part, you would have to be really experienced with the pen tool. If not, it does take some getting used to the pen tool. But practice makes perfect. And once you get used to it, the pen tool will be your best friend in Adobe Illustrator. So we're going to change the fill from the gradient to black. And with the pen tool, you'll start from the corner of the eye and go right over. Okay, now working with Adobe Illustrator, when you're using the pen tool, to maneuver the handles, what you do is you hold down on the Control key, and this will allow you to maneuver the handles any way you'd like, because if you don't and you try to connect the path, this is what's going to happen. So when you hold down on the Control key, you're able to better maneuver the handles and making it easier to close the path. So now I'm just going to connect these two and bring it up a little bit closer so that it's thinner. Alright, we're almost done. Now we're going to create a few more details and add some shadow to the eye, fill in the color of the eyeball, and also add some eyelashes. Let's start with adding some shadow for the eyelid. And we're going to trace over the eyelid. You add eyelashes, and let me just get closer so you can see. You can add eyelashes and you curve the pen tool and then you connect the points and you bring them closer. The closer you bring them together, the thinner the eyelash will look. Now I've already created some eyelashes for this tutorial, but this is how you would create an eyelash. Alright, for the top lashes, the way I created those, I'll show you. I started with the shape, and then I used the crystallize tool. And you can adjust this, the shape or the size depending on the shape of your eye. But that's how I created the eyelashes for the top row, only because the upper eyelid is very thick with makeup. If it were thin, like the bottom lash, like the bottom lid, I would have used thinner eyelashes like the ones we use here for the bottom lid. But this is just so when you're doing an eye that has heavy makeup, that's how I created the top row eyelashes. So again, I had some already made for this tutorial, so that's what I'm going to use for the top lashes. Okay, we're almost done. Now we're going to fill in the white part of the eyeball and fill in the inner eyelid as well as the corner of the eye. Okay, for one last detail, we're just going to add some highlights to the eye, and then we'll be done. And we're going to select those two circles. Click on transparency and click on soft light. Now let me just show you a close-up of the eye. And you'll see that using the crystallize tool really does help make the eye look very realistic. Okay, adding all these layers and gradients, and then the highlights here. Okay, this completes our tutorial on how to create a realistic looking eye in Adobe Illustrator. I hope you all enjoyed this tutorial, and if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out. Remember to subscribe to this channel, and hope to see you here again next time.